Hey, Council, how are you today?
Doing well, Council. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
All right, let's get right to it. I think we're both ready to talk about this. We've been expecting this collaboration. Um, we're here to talk about indemnification. So I was wondering, what kind of scope of indemnification do you want for IP? Because my client was thinking of doing mutual indemnification, just both sides should stand behind their own IP, and since both companies are contributing, I think that each party should take responsibility for their own content and protect innovation on both ends.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We were really looking for or to have and for you guys to indemnify Ascendia for any third party IP infringement suits that arise from BMS's content. So if someone were to sue us claiming that BMS's materials were like illegally copied or their intellectual property, that you guys would need to handle that, not us.
All right, well, you think BMS can't assume liability for external integrations that we didn't vet or approve? Just I think if we don't authorize a plugin or a data set, we shouldn't be responsible for how it behaves in the Ascend Mine 360 technology. What do you think about allowing, like, including a third-party IP indemnification, like Ascendia wants, but limiting it to third parties that and integrations that BMS pre-approves?
Yeah, I think that could work. But the big thing for us is just really making sure that it's like we're protected from anything that arises that is BMS content related specifically.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page with that. I think if it's a third party that BMS has approved, then I think that's what you're getting at, right? Of that being the
Yeah,
BMS content.
yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, we can agree to that. Regarding caps on liability and insurance, we kind of have a tough cap. Our insurer he's got a hard limit. Um,
We were looking for somewhere closer to like 5 or 6 million.
for the liability, sorry, counsel, is the cap on liability and the insurance, are those two separate things, or is it a cap
Those
on
are two
liability?
separate things. Those are two separate things.
So are you referring to the insurance or the cap on liability?
I was referring to the insurance. For the cap on liability, what we're looking for is mainly for to cap Ascendia's liability at the total development fees paid. So if something goes wrong and Ascendia gets sued or owes money under the contract, the most Ascendia would have to pay is the amount BMS has already paid Ascendia for the project.
Okay. So I think for insurance, we could probably get behind, I think, 5 million professional liability insurance, and naming Ascendia as an additional insured would protect both of us if something goes wrong. Um, the only thing we ask is that since this coverage is a benefit to both parties, that the associated cost is taken into account when we're finalizing financial terms. Just because we're a small company, so maintaining this kind of coverage is a real expense.
Right.
So it's something that my client would like reflected eventually. And then for the liability cap, we were hoping to limit it to what my client puts in, just because of size and insurance structure. So having a ceiling on liability to what they put into the development project, I believe that's 1.5 million. And then if you agree to this, we could do a tiered cap system for milestones. So when X amount of revenue is reached, we can increase that liability cap accordingly. We can create a structured tier to include in the agreement.
I think that would work for us.
All right.
Would you, what we're looking for is to exclude indirect, special, and consequential damages. So if something goes wrong, neither side can claim there's extra or ripple effect losses.
Yeah, we're open to that. Would you be open to excluding personal injury or death from the liability cap? Because that's standard practice, usually covered by insurance anyway. So I feel like it's a fair exemption that it would keep both sides' claims protected.
Yeah, we can do that.
Awesome. And then I think just generally, we should mention right now that BMS is looking to refrain from any use of any breach language, meaning we don't want the liability cap to get undone due to any breach of the agreement. We'd like to limit it to willful misconduct, gross negligence, fraud, that type of situation.
Yeah, we're also looking to uh, not have unlimited liability exposure for BMS's actions, and trying to avoid having broad carve outs for just mere negligence.
All right, we like that. In terms of indemnification survival, what were you thinking, counsel?
We were thinking ideally like 3 to 4 years.
Our insurance tail coverage only extends to 2 years beyond termination. We were hoping to keep the indemnity obligations more narrow within that window because there's a risk of becoming uninsured otherwise. Would you be open to like compromising and doing 2.5 years survival?
We could do 2.5 years survival. Um, would you guys be okay with mutual waiver of punitive damages? You might have already covered that.
We
I
did
forget.
cover it, but yes, I we're open to that.
Okay. Then yes, we can do the 2.5.
In terms of more procedural uh, aspects, for the timing of notice, we were thinking that it should be less than 20 days. We were hoping for somewhere between 10 and 15.
We can make that work. We could do 10 to 15.
Do you want to set a hard number or should we just keep the range?
You want to do 15?
Sure.
Okay.
And days, are we doing business days or any day?
I think business days would serve both of us best.
All right. In terms of the control of the defense process and the settlement approvals, we were looking to keep things mutual and have shared control of both aspects.
Yeah, we were also looking for something similar, so we would be fine with that. As long as we have the right to step in and defend in the event that BMS, for whatever reason, doesn't take action.
I think that'd be perfect to have shared control then because I feel, or my understanding of it is that that would mean that you wouldn't even have to quote unquote step in, you would already be in. So I think that
Right.
would be the ideal for both of us.
That makes sense.
I have two more things on my list, counsel. And you can let me know if you have anything else, but just ensuring, I think we mentioned this, but having carve outs for fraud and willful misconduct that if Ascendia or I think this should be mutual, if Ascendia or BMS uh, commits fraud, willful misconduct, that we don't have to indemnify in that case.
Yeah, that's fine with us, but we can't have indemnification for BMS's pre-existing IP rights or obligations.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right?
So
That's
in the
that's
event that,
stuff that happened before we partnered.
yeah, just in the event that there's any issues with BMS's old intellectual property that existed before this contract.
Do you think we can make that mutual? Just because I don't know what Ascendia is doing behind the scenes either.
Yeah, we can make that mutual.
Awesome.
And did we cover the survival?
Yeah, we did.
Two
We
and a
agreed
half
on
years.
2.5. Yeah. The last thing I have here that I'm seeing is discussion of reasonable attorney's fees and costs. Because I was thinking we could talk about situations that like if you remember from our meeting with Professor Weldon, she mentioned thinking about situations that would shut each respective business down, like the risk situations that to include of like when indemnification should happen. I feel like we can do that off the record because that would give us more time to think and it's rather time consuming. I don't think we need to sit here and be negotiating for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we can discuss that and finalize that off the record.
Okay, perfect. So then the last thing is attorney's fees and costs. We were open to reasonable attorney fees and cost coverage.
That works for us.
All right. Well, I think that that is everything on my list. Is there anything on yours that we haven't covered?
I believe we have checked everything off my list as well.
All right, amazing. Well, look forward to being in touch about this and we'll get to drafting soon.
Sounds like a plan. Be in touch.
All right, have a good one.
You too.